Aloha, welcome to the Mr.G podcast. Today is Sunday, February 11th, 2024. It's 3 days before Valentine's Day. Um, my Valentine broke my heart today. I think we broke up for real this time. So I'm single again. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about change. Things change, people change, everybody change. There's two statements here. Nobody changes. Everybody always stays the same. People don't change. Okay. First statement, people don't change. Second statement, everybody changes. Which statement is true? They're both true. People change, whether they like it or not. Lives change, people change. One day, most likely, somebody else will be living in the room that you're living in the house that you're living in the apartment that you're living in, have totally different people that you'll never meet, see, or even know about. Things change, people change, the weather changes. That being said, you can also say people stay the same. A lot of people don't change. Now, today, Sunday, February 11th, it's 70 degrees here on the outskirts of Chinatown in Honolulu, Hawaii. It dropped below 70, which is rare on the island of Oahu. It got under 70 degrees. Now, yesterday's episode, podcast number 26, season 2, was titled Work Smart, Not Hard. And that had to do with change. As people change, as people get older, the smart ones, you work smarter and not harder. I don't work as hard as I did when I was in my 20s as I do in my 40s. I'm 44 years old now. When I was 20 years old, I worked a lot harder, but not as smarter. And the reason being, you learn in your 20s, in your teens and 20s, and sometimes if you're lucky in your 30s, you learn and you make mistakes and you learn from these mistakes. You have unlimited energy, at least I did in my teens and 20s. So with that, you have the ability to make these mistakes and to work incredibly hard and not necessarily incredibly smart. Now, today's topic has to do with how people change and your perception of them as well. You'll always remember somebody as if you haven't seen them in 10, 20 years, friend or family member, they'll always remember you as how you were when they had the most power over you. So no matter how much you have changed, they'll still remember you as how you were. An example would be my two older sisters, two twin sisters, 4 years older than me and my twin brother. And even though I haven't seen them in 20 years, haven't spoken to them in 20 years since our mother's funeral, they still see me and my brother as some little, you know, dirty, fucking dirty jerks that they can push around and that don't have anything going for them and aren't contributing members of society. And that's because that's when they have the most power. Also, in case I forget to say it, you may not always remember what somebody says. You may not always remember what somebody does, but you'll always remember how somebody makes you feel. And today's podcast is the perception that people give you. And that feeling that people give you is very strong. And the best sociopaths know this and take advantage of this. Okay, today's episode, we're going to talk about somebody that I grew up with. When you're growing up in the United States, you go to elementary school from first grade to fifth grade, and then you go to middle school for sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, and then to high school. And a lot of the people that you go to the elementary school with are the same people you go to middle school with. So even though you may not be friends with them, you interact with them here and there. When I was growing up, there was the cool kids. I wasn't part of the cool kids, neither was my brother. We went to a wealthy public school. And so the cool kids were all dressed in like the best clothes and this and that. And they played sports. And some of generally the kids that were the best at sports also were the popular kids that got the cool clothes and everything. But there was one individual, I'll try not to say his name for legal reasons, but he was different than the other popular kids where it seemed like he didn't always get the best clothes. He had to have hand-me-downs a lot, even though he was the oldest it seemed like he was the oldest. He had two younger brothers as well. And his name, I won't say his name, but He always treated me with respect, and I always remembered that as well. Um, One thing I remembered in elementary school and middle school, you learn, oh, your parents are divorced, even if you're not friends. You know, the teacher will ask, who in here is parents divorced? Who in here lives with their mom? Who in here lives with their dad? And me and my brother, our father had custody, so we lived with our father. And I remember he was one of the only ones that also lived with his father. And that was rare. You're normally when the parents get divorced, custody goes to the mother. So I remember that, and that was like something that we had in common. Like, oh, your father raises you and your two brothers. Oh, our father has sole custody of us. You know, and he always treated me with respect, even though I wasn't the coolest kid back then. My father got me the worst glasses, these huge glasses. I had acne all over my forehead, nowhere else, just on my forehead. And my even my twin brother Michael, who was 5, 6 inches shorter than me, didn't have acne, didn't have glasses. At times he'd, disown me and say that we weren't even related, you know. But we were both played sports, and this individual was also good at sports, and I'll give you three examples where he showed me respect. Is one time there was during a gym class, we were playing softball, and that was my worst sport, baseball. I could handle basketball. I was a good receiver in football, but in softball, for whatever reason, my coordination came so late in life. I couldn't even tie my shoes till I was like in fifth grade. So softball, for whatever reason, I could not hit the ball. And the individual we're talking about today, he was the pitcher. He really wanted me to hit the ball because everybody was laughing and like how I couldn't hit it and I was the worst one. And he's like, "Come on, put your eye on the ball." And then he gave me like and I remember he really wanted me to hit it, and yeah, I came the closest that I did, and he put it right down the middle, and I tipped it. And that was like the best that I did for, like I said, in middle school, I sucked at baseball, at softball. It's the worst sport. So then there was that. Then there was another incident in math class where the teacher was like, okay, everybody's gonna go to the person next to you, and one of you is gonna close your eyes and count to 60 seconds in your head. And once you reach 60 seconds, raise your hand. And so I was paired up with this individual and the cool kid. We'll just call him the cool kid. So I was paired up with the cool kid. And I remember I was just like counting fast, but I wanted to get through it because I didn't want to be like the last one or something. But I went through it so fast. First, I was like the first one. And then the individual, the cool kid we're talking about, he was just like kind of laughing, but trying to hold in. He's like, man, why'd you go so early? You know, came in last place, you know. And so there was that instance, the math instance, and then the final instance was in eighth grade at the basketball team. The one year we played organized sports, me and my twin brother, and we loved basketball, and we would play basketball in the neighborhood with all the neighborhood kids and stuff, but we never played organized sports. So in eighth grade, we were going to play basketball for the Bradley Middle School team. But the thing is, it was right before another middle school opened, so it's huge overcrowding. So there was like 100 people on the basketball team, so very few people got to play. But this cool kid that we're talking about, he was one of the starters and got to play a lot. And me and Michael, we sucked at the organized sports, the 3-man weave, the 5-man roll. We just couldn't. I could not figure it out. One of our worst days I ever had was the first day of basketball practice in eighth grade. But we made it through the whole season, and all the coaches agreed. I was the changed out of all 100 basketball players on the team because everybody made the team. Out of all 100 of them, the coaches all agreed that nobody had changed as much as or advanced as much as me, from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. And hey, that happens with a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of young men. You'll go, and women, you'll go through more changes during those years of your life than any other time of your life, during those puberty years. So uh, on the basketball team, me and my brother, we were bench warmers. We didn't get to play. We traveled with the team and went with the team. But then at the end of the game, the end of the season, there was one game where it was just a huge blowout. And so the coach put me and my brother in the game. And the starters, including the cool kid we're talking about, they were like all excited that we got to play. And I got the ball and I dribbled and got fouled and was at the free throw line and made the score sheet and put in two free throws. And I went up to shoot at the second free throw, and I looked over at the bench where our team was, and the cool kid that he was like cheer up and excited with everybody else. But then I looked at him like right in the eyes, and he realized that he didn't want me to like think he was laughing at me or something. So then he like calmed down and was like, just watching and just like not cheering as aggressively. And then I realized, I was like, oh, hey, that was pretty nice of him. And so I always had respect for this individual. A lot of the cool kids, they were like jerks and stuff. I wasn't necessarily like a nerd, but since, our father never got us decent clothes, and I had the huge glasses and the acne, and I was skinny and tall, and so a lot of the cool popular kids would be mean, but this individual was always respectful to me, always nice. And like I said, you may not always remember what somebody says, you may not remember what somebody does, but it's psychologically proven you're more likely to remember how somebody makes you feel. So, you know, I always held this person in high regard. And I've Googled him like 10, 15 years later, and I read this horrible crime that supposedly he committed, an essay on a woman. And I think like, oh, wow, I remember he was the only one that, his father had full custody. And he had these two younger brothers that would always go to all like the basketball games and the football games. And his brothers really liked me and my brother, I guess, because we were real noticeable or awkward kind of. And they were like a few years younger than him. And so they looked up to their older brother, and to see him having committed such a horrendous crime, it really like set me back. Like, you think somebody. A lot of times when they talk to people that have known serial killers, not every time, but sometimes they're like, "Oh, I would never expected it. I couldn't. I can't believe it. I can't believe that person would do such a thing." Yeah, that's not the person that I know, and it's kind of the same thing. And think about his brothers. I remember this, one of the most memorable basketball games I was ever in was a pickup game at St. Mark's Church in San Antonio. And me, my brother, I think Nathan Guidoni, and a couple other scrubs that weren't really like good at basketball, wearing jeans and boots and stuff. For whatever reason, we were at this church for this pickup game. And like the starters for the Churchill basketball team came in, and we're playing against them. And we just get off to this huge lead, and I'm the big man, and I'm up against the center for the starting center for Churchill High School, and I'm pulling down offensive rebounds and kicking them out to my brother, and he's shooting a three-pointer, and I'm getting another offensive rebound and just timing all these rebounds against this bigger, stronger player. And we were up really big early. It's like a 12-point game. We're up like 10-0. Then they come back and tie it like it's like 10-10. And then we win the game, and everybody runs on the court because it's like a huge upset. And I said his name. Okay. Michael Escobar's brothers run out onto the court, and they're like celebrating with us. And it's king of the court. So if you win, you get to play in the next game. We lost the next game, but we won that huge game. And it was just such an exciting moment, that a huge underdog team that me and my brother, and I can't remember, Chris Gatley was his name. Chris Gatley, this chubby guy, was also hitting three-pointers. I was pulling down the offensive rebounds, kicking them out, and they were hitting three-pointers. And like I said, his brothers, Michael Escobar wasn't at the game. Like I said, these crimes, I don't know if he was convicted or not. These are what's the word you're supposed to use? Supposedly committed the crime, or they are erroneously, or uh, anonymously. No, what's the word? Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, this individual, I hadn't seen him or years, all the way on the other side of the world now. I'm not ever going back to San Antonio, Texas. But I Googled him and I find out like, wow, he was convicted. He was like a coach at because a lot of players, when they're done playing, they finish school and they go back and they're like a basketball or football coach at their high school. So I think that was similar. He was like a basketball or football coach at his high school, and he had a relationship with this woman, and she had gotten a restraining order or whatnot, and he had violated it. This is all supposedly, and then one of the details of the crime is he got out of jail, and then he went to the woman's house supposedly, and um, he waited outside went inside while her garage door opened, and then slid under as her garage door was closing, and committed the same heinous act again. And it's just like, wow, how could that be the same person that I remember? And like I said, you may not remember somebody does. You may not remember what somebody says, but you'll always remember how somebody made you feel. And he always treated me with respect, and I always remembered that. And so reading about how he did these horrendous things, it's like unfathomable. Like that's the same individual. That's why, it's a lesson learned. Uh, they say everybody has the capability of evil inside of them, uh, and everybody has the capability of good as well. Um, I think about this person's younger brothers and how they looked up to him, and how their hero would do such a thing. So, in the end, we're all responsible for our own actions. And like I said, if he was here in front of me, I would remember the person that was kind to me in elementary school and in middle school. I wouldn't think of the person that I read about committing these terrible crimes. So you be the judge. Am I right there or am I wrong there? Should I be more argumentative? Should I, you hearing about these crimes that he did, you guys probably have a different perspective of him. So also, shout out to JP. I don't know if you can hear me, JP. Thank you. You made my Sunday wonderful. I appreciate you so much. And the Mr. G podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and watch full episodes in their entirety, twitter.com/Gregory Brandt. Let me know what you think of this story and yesterday's podcast. Work smart, not hard. People change. People aren't always the same person that you were, but also in the end, nobody changes. Stays the same. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. From me and my street cats. Aloha.